Somewhere between 2011 and 2016, a Wells Fargo employee opened a bank account in your name. You didn't ask for it. You didn't know about it. They used a fake email address. They transferred a small amount of money from your real account to fund the new one, which meant you paid fees you didn't know about. Then they moved on to the next customer. This wasn't one employee acting alone. This was happening across thousands of branches for 5 years, with the knowledge of management. By the time it was over, Wells Fargo had created 3.5 million fake accounts, and it had done it in the name of customer service. Wells Fargo was one of the most admired banks in America. It had survived the 2008 financial crisis better than most of its rivals. Warren Buffett held it as one of his largest investments. Its reputation was built on boring, reliable, customer-focused retail banking. But inside the bank, a very different culture had taken hold. For years, Wells Fargo had operated under a sales philosophy known as cross-selling. The idea was straightforward. If you already have a customer with a checking account, sell them a savings account, then a credit card, then a mortgage, then investments. The bank's internal slogan for this was, 8 is great. The goal was for every customer to hold 8 Wells Fargo products. To drive that goal, the bank created aggressive sales targets for branch employees. Daily quotas, weekly quotas, monthly quotas, hourly tracking in some branches. Managers pressured employees to hit their numbers. Employees who fell short faced public humiliation, demotion, or dismissal. And employees who couldn't hit their numbers legitimately because customers didn't want more products found a different way. The scheme was not complicated. If a customer came in for one thing, an employee might quietly open 2 or 3 additional accounts at the same time. A new savings account the customer never requested. A credit card sent to an address the customer didn't recognize. A line of credit that sat dormant and generated fees. To make it work, employees used real customer information, names, addresses, social security numbers from accounts the customer had actually opened. They created fake email addresses to complete the registration process. Addresses like nonamewellsfargo.com. They transferred small amounts of money from customers' real accounts to activate the fake ones, then moved the money back to avoid triggering overdraft alerts. Some customers eventually noticed. Unexpected credit card statements arriving in the mail. A new account appearing on their credit report. Overdraft fees they couldn't explain. When they called the bank, they were often told it was an error. The account would be closed. The fee would be refunded. Then, in a different branch, a different employee would open another one. The most damning aspect of this scandal was not the fraud itself, it was what management knew. And when. As early as 2011, Wells Fargo's own ethics hotline was receiving complaints from employees about the pressure to open unauthorized accounts. In 2013, the Los Angeles Times published an investigation exposing the scheme at branches in California. It described the pressure employees were under and documented cases of fake accounts. Wells Fargo's response was to fire employees for sales integrity violations. Between 2011 and 2016, the bank fired approximately 5,300 employees for opening unauthorized accounts. But the executives who designed the sales incentive system, the system that created the pressure to cheat, were not fired. The head of the retail banking division was a woman named Carrie Tolstedt. Under her leadership, Wells Fargo's retail branch network had become the most profitable in American banking, in large part because of the cross-selling strategy she championed. In 2016, Tolstedt retired. She left with a compensation package valued at around $125 million. A few months later, the story became public. In September 2016, regulators announced a settlement. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, and the Los Angeles City Attorney had been investigating Wells Fargo. They fined the bank $185 million. At the time, it was the largest fine ever imposed by the CFPB. The story dominated the news. Wells Fargo's CEO, John Stumpf, was called to testify before the United States Senate Banking Committee. The hearing was brutal.
You should resign. You should give back the money you took while this scam was going on, and you should be criminally investigated.
3 weeks later, Stumpf resigned. Wells Fargo clawed back $41 million of his compensation. Carrie Tolstedt was eventually fined $25 million by the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, one of the largest personal fines ever imposed on a bank executive. In 2020, Wells Fargo reached a broader settlement with the DOJ and SEC, $3 billion. The bank admitted that its employees had defrauded customers and engaged in identity theft. What made Wells Fargo's compliance failure distinctive was not that it was hidden from management. Management built the system that made it happen. The cross-selling targets were unrealistic. 8 products per customer is not a natural outcome of good service. It requires pressure or fraud. The bank's internal auditors flagged concerns. The ethics hotline received thousands of calls. HR fired thousands of employees. And still, the incentive structure remained in place. The targets remained. The pressure remained. Why? Because the strategy was producing extraordinary results. Cross-selling numbers looked great on earnings calls. Investors loved them. Executives were paid based on them. The compliance function existed. Ethics reporting existed. But neither was given the authority or the willingness of senior leadership to challenge a strategy that was profitable. This is a pattern seen in many corporate scandals. Compliance is treated as a box to tick, not a function with real power. And when the compliance function conflicts with the revenue function, revenue wins, until regulators show up. After the scandal, Wells Fargo eliminated its product sales quotas entirely. The 8 is great philosophy was officially abandoned. The Federal Reserve took an unusual step. It imposed an asset cap on Wells Fargo, preventing the bank from growing beyond its 2017 size until it demonstrated meaningful reform of its risk management and governance. That cap remained in place for years. But perhaps the most lasting consequence was to public trust. Wells Fargo had built its brand on community banking, on being trustworthy, on knowing its customers. The revelation that the bank had systematically exploited that trust, at scale for years with management awareness, fundamentally changed how many Americans saw the institution. A bank's most valuable asset is the belief that it is working in your interest. Wells Fargo spent years demonstrating that it wasn't. Compliance Edge channel covers corporate fraud, compliance failures, and the systems that are supposed to prevent them. Explained clearly. No jargon required. Subscribe for a new video every week. And if you found this useful, share it with someone who should know this story.